So today we are shooting our maiden podcast on the road to 100,000 podcast. That's what we dubbed this special to be, and we'll see where it goes. But the whole idea is an introduction into Finovate's main service offerings. But as I was preparing for this podcast and just thinking about it, I realize a lot of companies do podcasts obviously to promote and sell their products, but what's the point of selling anything if it isn't really helping, or if it isn't really helpful, if it doesn't really meet a need or address a pain point? If you're not serving or helping anyone with what you're giving to the world, then what is the point? So in a way, this is us trying to explain and elaborate on what we believe really can help small businesses, not just in South Africa, but around the world, literally around the world. And there's a few topics and service offerings we'll be diving into during these podcast series episodes. But we're going to start off with a sort of general introduction and chat a bit about one of our offerings, which is called inward expansion. But I guess just to kick us off, let me introduce the guest, Francois, guest/co-host, however you want to call it, director at Finovate, and also one who birthed these ideas. A lot of these ideas we'll be speaking about, and is very passionate about these ideas because it's linked to his call as well, and as well as the call of this company. So Francois, welcome. Good to have you on the podcast. I'm speaking as if it is my podcast, but it's more ours. But maybe just introduce yourself a bit. What do you do? What do you do for Finovate? Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Martin. And so maybe a little bit about myself. So I'm one of the directors at Finovate, and just really passionate about strategy, vision, and solving big problems. And I do believe, as we'll hear in the podcast, there's massive problems, but every problem is a potential solution to be solved. And we'll dive into that a little bit more, probably on a personal level. I do believe that that work or vocation is also a calling, and really love the fact that Finovate was birthed on the word stewardship. And I do believe that there will be like a golden thread of stewardship that plays out through everything we do. And we really believe from Finovate's side that we need to be trusted custodians of what's been entrusted to us. And we need to assist and help our clients, partner with them to really be good custodians of what's been entrusted to them. And these solutions, a lot of that would be driven through that, almost the lens of stewardship. And we'll probably get to the rest as well in terms of values and other things that is passionate or that we are passionate about.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to re-emphasize the fact that a lot of what we do is very much values-based. It's conviction-driven. We firmly believe in stewardship to be a very important characteristic of what we do and what we call to do, and we want to pass that on to our clients as well, that understanding and that belief. But let's maybe dive into our first topic or service offering we just want to unpack, called inward expansion.
Yes.
From the get-go, if you've never heard of inward expansion, it sounds a bit contradicting. It sounds a bit like an oxymoron. You probably won't know what this means at all. So let's maybe start. What is inward expansion? What is it supposed to do and be for companies, and then dive into maybe how it started, where this idea came from, because I know this came from a pain point, a real pain point that we had some resources to be able to solve, and now it's become what it is. But you can elaborate on that.
Perfect. So I'm gonna go back almost to the start. Martin knows me, but I'm kind of a big picture person, and there's a kind of a story behind it. So I'll maybe share the story. So I think it was just after COVID. One thing that stuck me was, all of a sudden Zoom and Teams started to kind of boom, and we were able to see a whole new service or cross borderless services kind of being birthed out of that, or it has been there, but it really took flight after COVID. People working from home, and it did not necessarily matter where you're based. If you were sitting in home in London or if you're based in Cape Town, the service offering could be the same. On top of that, as coming from South Africa has been in the last 10 to 15 years, the economy has effectively shrunk per capita and or GDP per capita, and we're not seeing growth. And being a proud South African and loving our people and loving what South Africans are about, it's really sad to see and having going deeper in some of the stats, knowing that there are so many South Africans that are amazing people, but they can't find employment in South Africa. There's just not, the economy is not big enough and it's not growing. And I do think it is being hampered by a few elements. But on our side, it was there was a light bulb moment, a dream that I received, specifically mentioning what would it look like if we've got 100,000 people living in South Africa, but working globally, working for international clients. And out of that, that is kind of the starting point for birthing the product Inward Expansions. What is Inward Expansions? What we're trying to solve is there's a lot of international clients that they know that South Africans are hardworking. Most probably they're already working with 1 or 2 South Africans in their company. There's about 27 to 28,000 South Africans that leave the country every year. And most of them are highly qualified, and it's a massive brain drain effect that we're seeing in South Africa. On top of that, if you look at the stats and you actually go and talk to these people, they would have loved to stay in South Africa if they had the opportunity to live out their life and be able to earn a good income and while staying in South Africa. So how do we solve that problem? And part of that would be for international companies to come into South Africa and to actually build teams in South Africa. Once again, another problem, South Africa's red tape. It's really difficult to set up entities in South Africa, to get bank accounts, to be to fully trust and understand our local legislation. And so these international companies, they would rather take that market, or they would rather go into another jurisdiction that's easier to understand, and that might just be a lot less red tape in order to build these offshore or nearshore teams. And our Inward Expansion product effectively gives them one professional partner that can help them from setting up entities, opening up bank accounts, making sure their cross-border compliance is done and ticked off, all the way to a retainer that helps them to recruit employees through our service providers, help them with their HR and their industrial relations, and making sure the contract employment, the contracts are done correctly, making sure payroll is done, making sure pay-as-you-earn is paid across to SARS, making sure that all money flowing in and out of South Africa is governed and goes through the Reserve Bank on the right BOP codes, and also making sure that in terms of CIPC, who governs our private companies, or actually all companies, that they don't fall into the trap of being non-compliant. So all in all, the Inward Expansion solution, it's a one-stop solution that enables international companies to really build and scale teams in South Africa. And our dream is that this would form part of a bigger objective of actually having 100,000 people live in South Africa but work for international companies.
That is the goal, 100,000. And in a few years' time, 100,000 might seem like quite small when we've closed that gap now. I mean, we're only a few percent there. We're not there yet. And 100,000 will also only play a portion of the bigger need that South Africa has in terms of employment. And with
Definitely.
globalization, I mean, with Teams, with Zoom, with WhatsApp, you can now call someone in London with almost no effort and have a conversation. And that is what globalization has done. But to go from another angle, let's say I'm a business owner in the UK or the US, and I have a property management company, and I need staff to be able to do some administrative and operational roles in the back end, but I don't necessarily need them to be here in my country, and I'm looking towards South Africa.
Yes.
Why? I guess first question is, why is South Africa a country you should be looking at? And then second question would be, easiest for me to be able to get a team in South Africa would just be to get a bunch of consultants or contractors and have them invoice me, sort of keep it as simple, as lean as possible. But
which is why and what most companies currently are doing.
Yes, and you've mentioned some flags there, but maybe just explain, why is South Africa a good country to be looking at for nearshore offshore teams, and why can't I just go the contracting route? What's the issues there?
No, it's a great question, and so I'll start off maybe with why South Africa. What makes South Africa so great? So let's look at the UK specifically, and we've been working with over probably 60 to 70 clients, and not all of them based in the UK, but most of them based in the UK. And I'll share what they are saying about South Africans and why South Africa for them. So historically, the business model has been mostly to use for offshoring to go to India and the likes of the Philippines, if you are a UK-based company. But some of the problems that they're running into there is, yes, you're getting a great, probably 3-to-1 return in terms of the cost. So there's probably a 3 times cost saving compared to the UK. But there are barriers in terms of timelines, time zones, and there's barriers in terms of just cultural differences. And what we've heard our clients communicate who's transitioned to South Africa is, it takes them a lot less time to manage the South Africans. There's something about South Africans who are amazing problem solvers. And there's also a cultural, it's more similar from a cultural point of view. Both countries are passionate about rugby, passionate about cricket, passionate about soccer. And we've also a lot of our people in South Africa, there is a strong European heritage in South Africa, and specifically the type of people that they do end up contracting in South Africa. A lot of the times, it's very similar actually from a cultural point of view to the teams that they've got currently in the UK. There is a hard-working component. South Africans, because we have suffered for quite a long time, there is a lot of South Africans see this as a great opportunity and actually are extra. Actually, like, they just work longer hours, and they are great problem solvers, and they really shift the needle in terms of value being created for UK clients. And then the other thing is, people love to come to South Africa. So we've seen a lot of our clients who want to build a team in a jurisdictional place where they would love to come down. They connect to their team in Cape Town, for instance. A lot of our clients actually build teams in Cape Town specifically. It's already seen as a professional hub in South Africa, but also for international clients. The likes of Amazon have built AWS in Cape Town, or a big part of AWS is based in Cape Town. So there's also a proven business model for bigger companies that have done it. Currently, the problem has been with smaller companies. How do you do it if you don't do it at that scale? And I think that's when normally that's where you actually need a professional partner in South Africa. So that's the first point. I think in terms of salaries, cost, it's probably a 2-to-1 South Africa versus UK. In the UK, there's NI, national insurance, and there's a lot of additional benefits. In South Africa, that's also a lot less.
Higher cost of living.
And it's mostly down to the higher cost of living in the UK that just drives up the minimum wage and the salaries, which makes sense. In South Africa, it is a lot less, but it's great quality of life that you can have here. We also believe it is not exploitative. So people can earn a good living and a good wage in South Africa. And even if it is half or maybe 60% of what a UK colleague would earn, your cost of living is so low that your actual what effectively what you can save and your lifestyle is probably higher than your colleague in the UK, and just based on what South Africa's got to offer. But then in terms of maybe on a practical, like how would you start off? So your considerations are either just trying to employ somebody, or not employ, but having an independent contractor. Why this is potentially a red flag is, in South Africa, the labor laws are quite strict. And I think it's definitely different to the likes of the Philippines, where this route is very normal. But in South Africa, if the person solely or mostly works for you, and you give the instructions, you probably give them a lot of the most of their time, 80% plus would be spent on the one client. They could be seen based on our labor law as not being an independent contractor, but actually being an employee. And when that gets triggered, the employer is actually liable and can be held liable to pay over pay as you earn on behalf of the employee. And this is where the problems could start. So you are then sitting with potential red flags with SARS, or income tax or regulatory body, and these penalties can really become quite substantial. If you've got a team of 20 and probably 80,000 Rand of pay as you earn had to be paid across based on the actual salaries per month, you're looking at more than $1 million per year. That's without penalties and interest. And these penalties, it can be multiples of the actual pay as you earn. So we advise our clients not to go that route. Either come straight to us and set up an entity, or alternatively look for an employer of record, which is another model that works if you've got a team of less than, we think between 1 and 10, EOR makes sense. Probably from 5, if you've got 5 employees in South Africa, it would be great to consider actually having your own entity. And we can definitely help with that.
So what do you see as the fear that companies have, overseas companies wanting to build a team in SA, for instance? What's the fear they have from going over from then, let's say if they've been doing the contracting method, or let's say they've been using even employee of record. What's the resistance? What's the fear? Why are they often hesitant to go over and establish their own entity? What's their concerns typically? Because I guess that's with a lot of people maybe listening to this will be asking in their mind, like, great, it sounds amazing, but there must be reasons why everyone isn't doing it yet.
Yes. So I think the first thing is that you would need, historically, people would probably have 3 or 4 different consultants or professional partners that they needed in order to then establish an entity in South Africa, have somebody on the ground, have a local public officer who is responsible for taxes. There is also the idea that you probably need a local director, which going through our product, you actually don't need a local director, but you do need a local public officer, which is responsible for SARS and for any taxes being paid. But I think that the mind space and knowing that you now need to do an expansion into a different jurisdiction, and traditionally it takes up a lot of senior management hours and headspace to do an expansion into another jurisdiction. That just sounds too much admin burden in order for the gain that you could get. And that's kind of what we're trying to solve. So traditionally it would be about 200 hours or so of management time to go through and spend time with the different specialists. That would be on top of actually paying these different specialists and giving different advice from the different specialists. And that at the end of the day, probably not being able to get the right advice, and also not even having a bank account that actually works practically in South Africa to pay salaries.
Which, believe it or not, is quite an administrative burden sometimes.
It is.
For overseas companies to set it up.
It would be an administrative burden, and that's normally where the companies just throw in the towel once they start practically looking at it and trying to open up a bank account and not getting right, not understanding the South African ecosystem. But yeah, like I'll explain, that's something that we have solved, and that's something that we think is fundamental in order to actually operate in South Africa, is knowing that your structure is compliant, but it's also practical. And it allows you to build a team in a short space of time, compliantly, and be able to do it at scale.
So continuing with the case study of me being a property management company owner in the UK, are you saying I can literally come to Finovate for the whole packet of services or things I need done to be able to set up and run a team in South Africa? Or should I be looking elsewhere for other things that you don't do? Because I think also element of resistance or hesitation could be the fact that you now have to spread yourself 3-4 places and make sure you have these things in place so that you can just run a team. And that's probably where the element of burden comes in senior management's heads. But is it really a one-stop?
Yeah. So let me go there. So in terms of what we've seen, the need is, it is the needs might be a little bit different for each client. The reason why we say it's a one-stop is we become your strategic partner that helps you expand into South Africa. And even if there are certain specialists, certain clients have certain IP questions or considerations, we will still be able to facilitate that. We've got partners that are based in South Africa, and that's absolutely brilliant at IP. But the thing that we've seen that really works and where the value lies is us being able to almost be the general practitioner, the GP, like the doctor, and there's a strong relationship, a trusted relationship with us, and us being able to guide them through the different elements depending on what their needs are. If it is IP, we will connect them to the IP specialist, and we would even facilitate those calls, and we would probably be in that call as well, really driving the scale, the expansion into South Africa, and understanding that if the client loves South Africa, if it works, and if we can seamlessly integrate them into how it needs to operate in South Africa, it's going to move us closer to our vision and our goal of getting 100,000 South Africans to work for international clients. So we see it all within the bigger picture. And if we can make it easier, simpler, and take away the friction areas, that is the role that we can play for them. The other element that we normally partner with is recruitment. So in order to build a team, normally they would not have a recruitment partner. So back in, we've got 6 to 7 really trusted recruitment partners that have worked with international clients and that know how to recruit for them in South Africa. Office space, for instance. We've got different people with different models that work if you do want to set up an actual office in South Africa, just to get that feeling that this is actually it's not just a somebody that is a contractor. They actually feel they know they're part of a bigger team, and it's just the SA contingent, the SA team. And sometimes it's great to have that space, even if you don't go there every day. Today, it's a lot of it is hybrid, but there is a place, there is a community that you can be part of. There is some sort of a culture that's being built, and it's the same culture that is in the UK for that property company. That same culture can be built in South Africa. And we will facilitate and help the UK client to potentially also bring a team member across to South Africa. It might be a year with our immigration specialists that we work with to help them to legally get to South Africa and to build out a team. So there's different ways of solving it and doing it. But our function would be to really be that professional strategic partner in South Africa that helps you scale your SA operations.
What I'm hearing is Finovate's really trying to be the glue that keeps things together. Because ideally in their mind, when you think of the relationship that we want them to have with us, is like having a relationship with another partner in your business.
Yes.
Not having to worry necessarily about what they do.
Without giving up equity.
Yes, which is even a bigger benefit.
Yes.
Because there's none of that risk. It's sticky, but it's not that there's not the collateral necessarily as of the risk. But as with everything we do, we want to be relational, and we want to be trusted, and we want to be a partner, and we want to help and pick up the loose ends where they shouldn't be necessarily focusing their time.
And just to add to that, I don't think that because of how fast things moved past COVID, before COVID, it was only the bigger multinationals that considered South Africa as a jurisdiction, or most of them that considered South Africa as a jurisdiction to build their teams. The smaller companies, let's call it the scale-ups or the private-owned companies, founder-led companies, it wasn't necessarily something that they could do because of the original costs of working through big law firms, or it was only maybe the big four corporates, Deloitte, PwC, EY, KPMG, that could help you to facilitate and build a team in South Africa. And that would have cost millions. But today we see that shift. And after COVID, there hasn't really been somebody in the South African space that's taking up that role to really assist and be this professional partner for international founder-led businesses to expand and build their teams in South Africa. And we see the SME as really the market that's going to drive job creation. And we've seen it internationally. In South Africa, it's not necessarily the case. And we would love for our international partners and international clients to be able to tap into the South African skill set, professional skill set that is available. And we think that there's a lot more. We did mention 100,000, but there could even be more. Just to give you some stats, if we take the brain drain effect and we want to reverse that, if about 25,000 to 28,000 South Africans leave, or professionals leave the country every year, it takes you about 4 years of that being reversed to put another 100,000 professionals in South Africa that would be very eligible to work for your business that's based overseas.
So that's a massive effect actually on this country as a whole that we're trying to alleviate or at least help in some way. And even looking at unemployment figures, I mean, it's really difficult to really know what the unemployment rate in our country is, because a lot of our informal workers are people in informal settlements and townships and so forth. They might not be a stat, but there's still business ongoing.
Yes.
But in a way, this offering, even though the nuts and bolts is really just to take a compliance burden off of overseas companies, it really allows people in South Africa who maybe previously wasn't even a stat to actually now step into a role, be uplifted, which is a lot of what our country needs, is people being uplifted out of their situation, changing family trees. And in many ways, this allows this, which is an honor to be a part of. But I guess leading on to the next question, I'm curious to hear what has been some of the success stories. How has it been going? What are you seeing? I mean, in reality, obviously, there's issues and things come forth, and it's not a completely perfect and smooth ride.
Yes.
But what have you been seeing? Has it been working? Inward expansion in general as a product?
Yes.
What's the success story been so far?
Yes. So I think one of the success stories is that there's one client specifically. I won't mention the client, but it is a UK-based client, and what we managed to do is they specifically the traditional timeline to come into South Africa and to set up an entity and get everything ready so that you can actually start employing South Africans. That would be about 8 to 9 months. And like I said, probably 200 professional hours from the international team. So what we managed to do with them is, but the way that we're structuring it, we already have an entity set up. We try and pre-build a lot of that, almost looking at like how do you sell an iPhone. You can buy an iPhone from iStore. It's already there. It's already built. All the software is already implemented. So looking at the product lens and saying, how can we productize our service offering and really reduce all elements, or at least everything that is in our control? How can we reduce that to the shortest amount of time? What we've done is we found that pre-building the entity, already having an income tax number, SARS takes long. There's a lot of these lags because of compliance and red tape in South Africa that just prolongs the whole process. So from 9 months, we've been able to reduce that to, we're very comfortable doing it within less than 2 months. And we'll even give a money back guarantee if we can't do it within 2 months. But with some of these clients, we definitely think we can still make it even shorter. So from the time that a new client comes in or accepts the once-off proposal to them actually employing or putting their first employee on the payroll, I believe that would be probably in the next month's time. We could probably do that within a month or month and a half, reducing it from 9 months to that. Which
is unbelievable.
Yes, we'll keep the guarantee to 2 months just to give us some time. But that has been a great kind of a case study of doing it with a client. And it is, I think what maybe differentiates us from another service providers, because we really see this as a niche market and something that is a product that we really want to grow. We can go extra deep to really solve the little smaller elements of this offering and to keep on refining. And it's just going to get better because we really identify this, and it's 100% in line with what we see in terms of the vision and the mission, and also my personal mission of really seeing 100,000 South Africans working locally and or like living locally but working for global companies. So it's been a great journey thus far. The feedback's been really good. And we've done it with UK and US clients, and both of them feedback really good. I do think we are also fortunate in the sense that we have also expanded our company to the UK, and we've been to the US, had US clients as well. So in some ways, we actually understand their needs, their requirements as well. So it's not just that we understand the South African need; we understand they need on the UK side and on the US side, and also what needs to happen intercontinents or kind of what happens between the two nations, because there is also a lot of red tape between nations. Talking about transfer pricing, looking at just money flowing through the Reserve Bank, and knowing how to account for that, endorsement of shares. So there's a lot of pitfalls if you don't know what you're doing, and all of those pitfalls. The problem with that is if a professional service provider takes on the role of trying to do this, it's effectively seeing in part, and then there's normally going to be a roadblock. Once they hit the roadblock, it might actually lead to the international client just withdrawing the whole operation and rather taking that team to another jurisdiction, which obviously would be very bad for us. And it's not necessarily that our people are bad, that they haven't done the job. It's actually just getting the structure right in order to employ the people where it fell flat and people just lose faith in the South African system.
Yes. And I think it's definitely not lightly said to say that we've expanded to the UK or expanded to the US, because it's really not just about picking a country and going. It's culturally getting to know their people and the way they do business and when and how they like their meetings done. And it's legally and it's compliance and it's the accounting. It's fully ingraining yourself as a company into that country. So we really back ourselves when we say we are expanding or we have expanded into a certain nation, because there's a lot to consider. It can't just be done naively.
Yes, and I think what it helps is it puts you in the shoes of your client, knowing how difficult it was and the millions that we lost by actually expanding into the UK and not knowing necessarily who to partner with locally, having flaws and problems with local compliance, with ICAEW, knowing how to work with HMRC, Companies House in the UK, but learning from those mistakes and almost the reverse, knowing that there are fears and there's rightful fears for international clients wanting to come to South Africa. But you can solve it from a founder's kind of mindset, because we've also done it. We've seen the other side, the flip side of it. At the same time, we've seen the value it can unlock by going to another jurisdiction, and actually understanding how a borderless company can look like and operate, especially in services, which is kind of our field of expertise.
And we've also seen now the trust that it builds to show clients or prospective clients the scars we've had and accumulated over the years of trialing and error and failing and so on, and learning out of it and getting better. And like, we've been down this road. Don't go there. And I guess that's what really builds trust. But that relationship, and it also comes with time.
Yes.
But I think we've covered enough for this session. I think we can wrap it. We'll probably go on and expand a little bit more as time goes on, but I think we covered what we needed to. Any last thoughts you wanted to mention on this topic?
Yeah, so maybe just a last thought would be like, if we think, and it's two things actually, like the dream I received or that I had, the 100,000 was one component of it, but what really excites me is we know that in South Africa there's a lack of leadership, there's a lack of mentorship, there's a lack of discipleship, and the problem with our current economy is that our best people do leave the country for greener pastures, but their heart is green. They want to come back. So we believe that this offering would actually enable, similar to Nehemiah that came back, that rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem. We believe that there's a lot of international based South Africans that's going to see this opportunity, and they're going to bring back their companies that they are now working for or that they founded internationally. And because of this seamless product where they can expand back into South Africa and they've got somebody trusted on the ground who can build them the rails, we believe probably half of that 100,000 would be by virtue of South Africans being based all across the world, coming back to South Africa, like Nehemiah, and helping us to rebuild the walls of South Africa. That is going to obviously create a lot of additional roles and work here. And if every person that the extra roles that we've built or that we're just part of this whole bigger rebuilding the walls, if we can just get 10 mentees for each of the 100,000, that's the next million leaders that's being built in South Africa. That is a component that really excites me. And I think our heart is that it can really be a redemptive purpose for South Africa. If we look at sport, what sport has done in South Africa, we look at Rassie, we look at Sia, and how they've they've made their mission not just to win the World Cup in order for us just to be the best team in the best rugby team in the world. They've added something a lot bigger and a lot greater. And I think we need to also, as a business community, we need to follow on from what they've done and what grit and what determination they've shown to actually lead the way and showing us how sport can unite us as a nation. But also, I think business has got a great opportunity, and especially South Africans living globally who can come back and it can really rebuild the walls of South Africa. So those are the two elements that I think is massive and a great potential. And just on I'm a chartered accountant, just on a numbers level, if we do if another 100,000 people don't go overseas and they're in South Africa and they can work from here, we are effectively, based on our models, we think it would probably bring in another 100 billion rands into the South African economy. And it would generate about 30 billion of taxes, taking 30% as an average tax on a million rand per annum salary.
Which at the moment is SARS's backfall.
Which is
for their target, 35 billion.
Yes.
So, as an example, to put it in the context.
Yes. So what we think is this is not just great for those 100,000. This is going to stimulate the South African economy. It's going to bring in a lot of foreign funds into our economy, and that trickles down. So yes, we are solving a high LSM problem by creating jobs at the high LSM level. But that 100 million is going to flow through, and it's going to flow through and trickle through to every single person in South Africa. But we think it's something that can be solved, and we are determined to try and solve that. And there's also a call to partner with others. We don't want to do it alone. We want to work and collaborate with others. There's probably others that is in this space already solving it, and we're very happy to partner with others in this space. We don't think it's just us, and effectively the glory shouldn't go to us. I believe this dream it's not birthed within myself. As a Christian, I believe this is also part of my calling, but I also believe this is something we can share, and we can collaborate with other partners that have a similar dream, a similar mission, and I think we are stronger together.
The mission really does sound audacious, but it needs to be to drive us in that direction. But yes, it is such an honor to be a part of this bigger redemptive and restorative mission and call. So our hearts are really for that and for this country and for SMEs around the globe. But I think that is that for today on a road to 100,000. So good maiden episode. I think we did well, but more to come.
Perfect. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks, everyone.